$30, $40, $50, $60, $5 on sale, $70. Y'all ready for this?
Good morning, Mario.
Okie dokie.
Good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. Hope you guys are all having an awesome start to your week so far. It's getting sunnier here, the degrees are slowly climbing the thermometer scale, and we're getting close to daylight savings time being donezo, so I'm a happy camper. Hope you guys are as well. Smash that like button if you want to support the show and the channel. It really does mean a lot. It helps when you guys like and comment and subscribe, so keep up the good work. We've got an important discussion about the $70 price point possibility for Breath of the Wild 2, and if that would crush your enthusiasm for the game, or if you think Nintendo has earned it. So I want to hear your take in the comments down below. But before we get to that topic, I want to talk about PopCap and EA bringing Frostbite to Switch and how tough it was. Like, you're not going to believe what Plants vs. Zombies started off as on the Switch. And of course, we've got our glorious poll. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Thank you so much for being here on another lovely day in Nintendo land. PopCap is bringing Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville Complete Edition to Nintendo Switch on March 19th. Now, it's a pretty cool game. It bombed at launch, but I still think this PvZ franchise is awesome. Garden Warfare is one of the coolest re-implementations of a franchise, completely swapping the genre, and Battle for Neighborville still is a good game. It might not be as awesome as Garden Warfare 2, but I still really like it and I recommend it. What's interesting though is this is the first game to bring EA's Frostbite Engine to Nintendo Switch. And this has been a point of contention and one of the main reasons we probably don't have Madden portably. Frostbite is EA's in-house engine, and apparently it was really tough to bring to Switch. The PvZ team says that when they first put Frostbite on Switch, it was running 2 or 3 frames per second. It was a slideshow, they said, and we had a lot of work to do. Now you can imagine 30 frames is what we're kind of used to on Switch, and 60 is the gold standard right now. Some people love 120, but 2 or 3, that would be like the pea shooter is like bop, 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 bop. Completely unworkable. But they partnered up with QLOC-SA, which is a support studio that actually helped bring Hellblade and Dragon's Dogma to Switch, which are 2 very solid ports. And so they were able to support PopCap and EA in getting Frostbite up and running on Switch, and now they're happy with where it's at. I'm a little concerned, and I really do want to play the game for myself, to see how close they got to perfection if they started at 2 to 3 frames per second. But this is really great news, and it's hopeful not only for this game, but for the potential to get other EA titles as well. EA has been very, very reluctant to support the Switch in full capacities, and oftentimes their ports like FIFA are lackluster. Now, PopCap did say that the 4 gigs of RAM on Switch made it very challenging, but I'm hopeful that their discoveries and the progress they've made here with Plants vs. Zombies will assist EA in bringing even more of their titles to the platform. I'd love to see that new co-op game, It Takes Two, that releases at the end of this month, hit Switch. It's a brilliant looking game that is so intrinsically co-op. It doesn't star Mary Kate or Ashley Olsen, but it looks awesome, and I think it'd be an ideal fit for Switch. They did bring Unraveled 2, so I'd love to see It Takes Two at some point, and maybe this is part of the process. Alrighty, it's time for our price discussion. Buckle in, get some popcorn, lock up your wallets, let's go. Pricing has been a hot topic for Nintendo as of late, specifically because of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. That is a port of a pretty old Wii game, and right now all we know that they're adding is a new control method, which is important and almost critical, but is it worth a full $60 price point for the port? Now, if you think that is aggressive, and for me, like, I'm okay to pay for it if you want to play the game. Nintendo has charged $60 for all their ports, so I don't think Skyward Sword should be all that different. But what if they priced Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 at $70? Would that upset you greatly? Or if the game is evolved, would you feel okay paying? Now, why is this even being brought up? Well, because other games on other next-gen platforms do cost $70, at least the first-party titles. We're seeing a very interesting scenario where Sony's upcoming PS5 lineup, Returnal and Ratchet & Clank, both cost $70. And people have scratched their heads as to whether or not that's worth it. Does Returnal look like a $70 video game? Is Ratchet & Clank a $70 video game? And of course, Xbox is experimenting with that price point as well. Ubisoft has done similar, and we're gonna see it across the board. Nintendo, may do the same if they bring out the Switch Pro, which all signs point to them doing, real close to Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. And that would make Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 the perfect candidate for the first $70 Nintendo game, at least on Switch. We'll get to that in a minute. I wonder how we Nintendo fans would receive this. Now, it would be on better hardware. It's a massive game, highly anticipated, maybe the most anticipated for Nintendo Switch, and one that fans couldn't possibly resist. And this is where you have to get into the psychology of pricing. Nintendo has actually really conditioned us to expect high prices for their first-party games for a long time. And you may say, no, they haven't. They've done a lot of sales on Switch. Things have been good, but this is new for Nintendo. Sales are new. They charged a lot of money back in the day. I remember walking into Funkoland and buying Pokemon Stadium and having to fork over $70, and it felt like so much money, like I was giving away my house. Here guys, I'm trading my Colonial for your Pokemon Stadium cartridge and the expansion pack, which I guess justified the extra cost. But Nintendo also charged $60 for Mario 64 at launch, $60 for Ocarina of Time, and there were some games on Super Nintendo and NES that were even more. Pricing is actually better than ever right now when we consider this $60 price point. And I know that it's still a lot of money and you still want to get the best deals possible, but Nintendo has kept their Mario games evergreen for a while. They keep their first-party tentpole titles at the full value almost throughout the generation. It's not until recently that Nintendo has offered some discount on some of these top-tier games and started to really relax some of their restrictions on discounting their favorite properties. So we as Nintendo longtime fans, I think we would be okay with it. Maybe we wouldn't welcome it, but it would be understandable. Like, hey, Sony is going $70. Nintendo has had high standards for a while. In fact, back in the day, we paid this much for games, and with inflation, my $70 for Pokemon Stadium is so much more than the $70 hypothetically you could pay for Breath of the Wild 2. The other side of this is Nintendo adding on to the Switch in terms of power and oomph with the Switch Pro. So if the PS5 is the next step for Sony and the Xbox Series X is the next step for Microsoft, and they deem those consoles worthy of a $70 price point, shouldn't Nintendo feel the same? Now you could argue that the Switch Pro is a half step and the other consoles are full generational steps, so maybe Nintendo doesn't earn a price hike with that move, but then again, is the PS5 and Series X really a new generation when so many of the games, in fact almost all the games, play on both consoles? I mean, it's getting really murky nowadays. What is a true console generation and how do you define the next thing? Or is it all just iterative? But Nintendo Switch has had expensive titles for a while, and there's been some kerfuffle since the inception of the system on what is worth it for this platform. Remember when third parties had the Switch tax? Yeah, you probably remember because it was super recently. Games would come out on other platforms and then it would take 6, 12, 18 months to release on Switch. They'd be down to $20 on PS4 and they'd release at $60 for Nintendo. And you're like, what the actual heck? Why am I paying so much for you to port this later with worse fidelity? And sometimes we paid it and sometimes we didn't. And then Nintendo, they charge $60 for their Wii U ports, and they've increased the price of Tropical Freeze from its original release. Even though it's being re-released, it costs more. It's murky. I will give credit, though, to the recent releases and the upcoming releases for honoring a smarter pricing system. We're seeing it with Plants vs. Zombies and Crash Bandicoot 4, both coming in at $40, which feels fine. PvZ is a complete edition, all the DLC, no microtransactions, I get it. Crash 4 came out probably, about 6 months ago, 5 months when it releases, and so a $20 dip feels appropriate. Does a $10 increase feel appropriate for Breath of the Wild 2? But if I had to bet, and you want my opinion, I don't think Nintendo will do this. I don't think you have to worry. There's a chance that they decide to add the $10, but I don't think they will, and here's the one reason why. Box art. Huh? Yeah. So with the Switch Pro, it is probably going to be sold to you as an upgrade, not as the next big thing. And I think Nintendo will be very, very conscious of their huge 80+ million Nintendo Switch OG owners and not want to rock that boat. I believe that the boxes are going to stay exactly the same for Switch and Switch Pro games because it's a unified platform. It is a half step, tried and true. Whereas PS5, if you go pick up Miles Morales on PS5 Spider-Man, it's a PS5 box. And you can also get a PS4 box because it is a generational divide. So even though this would be a step forward for Nintendo, even though it'd be moving into 4K graphical territory, even though they totally could justify $70 when Returnal and Ratchet & Clank are charging $70 on the PS5, and those franchises, those games are nowhere near as impactful as Zelda. I mean, Ratchet is a really cool franchise, but you can't tell me that the demand for Ratchet & Clank: A Rift Apart is anywhere near the demand for Breath of the Wild 2. People are salivating, okay? They'd be willing to open their wallet and probably pay $100 if they could play it today. So I think it's feasible, but I think because Nintendo wants to keep this so unified, it would be really sucky to charge $70 for something on Switch Pro, $70 then for Switch, or do you do two boxes? I don't think they want to break up and divide their audience in that way. And if they were to charge $70 across the board, then you're gonna have old Switch owners who didn't even get the upgraded visuals or the upgraded better processing power, the better frame rate. They still have to pay $70. That doesn't feel right. Because on the PlayStation side of things, the old version, the PS4 version, it still costs $60. It's just the next gen version that costs $70. And so I think at the end of the day, the consistent box art is what's gonna prevent Nintendo from charging $70. But it is coming at one point or another. Whether it's Breath of the Wild 2, whether it's Mario Kart 9, whether it's the Switch 2 in 2024, whenever it is, Nintendo will at one point up the price. And I think that in a lot of ways, they will have earned it. They've delivered fantastic first-party titles. They have done a really good job of keeping their releases consistent. And even though they do oftentimes charge a little bit extra for their ports, they've established this baseline. They've established this history. They've conditioned us and trained us, whether we like it or not, to expect to pay full price for big Nintendo games. And they sell super well. Super Mario 3D All-Stars is a collection of 3 old games that have no business costing $60, and yet that is a 10 million unit seller. And I really believe that Skyward Sword HD will also sell millions and millions of copies at its full $60 price point. Hopefully, Breath of the Wild 2 will also sell millions and millions and millions and millions of copies at a $60 price point. But I want to hear what your take is. Would you not pick up BOTW 2 if it was $70? Or would you still have to buy it? I feel like 90% of you would still have to buy it, so like that makes me slightly nervous, but I'm hoping Nintendo will hold out and save that for their true successor to Switch. Time for the poll. You've made it to the poll. Cast your ballot. Let's dive in. Every evening on the community tab, you can find these awesome Nintendo questions. They're really fun. I get a kick out of this so much. I hope you do as well. Today's is about Breath of the Wild 2. I asked, do you believe that Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 will release this year? And your options were September to November 2021, December 2021, like, oh gosh, we missed Black Friday, but we still want to pop it in this calendar year. March 2022, which would be like, hey, if they delay it, that's the most likely release window. Or May 2022, so like off in the future, like they really can't get it. COVID's having severe consequences. The Switch Pro is delayed, Breath of the Wild 2 is delayed, maybe even delayed again. Oof. Now I was pretty surprised by the answers because you guys are confident as heck that Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out next year. 49% said March 2022. And that was my vote as well. Guys and girls, I really want to play this game this year, but it feels like the way they're setting it up, they are going to have a big, awesome launch party for Switch Pro with Pokemon, Splatoon, and Zelda, and it feels like that's going to be Q1 2022. Like the Switch Pro might still come out this holiday season with a Mario Kart or with some other Mario type title, and then, you know, get a bit of an install base and then pop off these big hitters once we roll into the next fiscal year. There's a chance it could come December 2021 or September to November. 20% said December, and only 13% said September to November. So there's no confidence among our audience right now, amongst our community, that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be their big holiday game. And 17% of you, this comes in third place, said May 2022. Like, you're forgetting about Breath of the Wild. You're not even keeping it close right now. And I wonder if this is because Aonuma had nothing to say or show. He did say development was going smoothly in the last Direct, but they didn't even have a trailer. Now, Nintendo is very cautious, they're very careful, they want to hit their dates, and they will reveal a trailer once they know they can make the release happen. So I think we could still see a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer at E3 with a launch date for later this year or next year. It's kind of a toss-up, but yeah, I'm with you guys. March 2022 feels just about right. There you have it, my friends. Another awesome episode of Good Morning Mario. We're cruising towards 50. We're 31 today, my exact age, so it's a special freaking episode, and I'm so grateful for you guys supporting this, supporting what I do, supporting my positivity, and supporting me. I'm just a goofy guy trying to make awesome videos, loving Nintendo, and having fun with all of you, so I appreciate you guys a lot. I'll see you all tomorrow. Until that time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy out there. Hit that like button if you want to support. Let me know your take on $70 Breath of the Wild 2 in the comments down below. And until next time, everybody, love you a lot. Have a great day. SwitchForce, out.